our next speaker for this event. In the person of Dr. Margaret SIYAWAMWAYA, please pardon me, Dr. Margaret. She's the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences, ZIMYAS, and she'll be talking to us on research policy nexus and citizen participation through civil society organizations towards actualization of AU Agenda 2063. Dr. Margaret, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ms. Victoria. I'll just share my slides. I think it's on now. Okay. All right. Thank you once again, and good day, everyone. Thank you. This has been exciting. It has only been a few sessions, but so far you can feel if we're all on board, we really want to drive this. We really want Africa to be right. And thank you again to the organizers of this conference for inviting me and for inviting me on behalf of the Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences. As has been mentioned earlier, I then went on to refine my topic to say the science policy nexus. So I'll be talking about how science can engage with policy, and I'll just highlight two main areas that Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences has been working on to address this issue as we push the agenda of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. So just to get started, just look briefly into the history of science, just to set the perspective here. So you see that science has come a long way, where in the very early times, scientists were mainly just solving problems that they were faced with. So when there was a problem in society, scientists would jump on to quickly find a solution. So there are two types of scientists. Those would quickly come on with solutions, practical solutions. And then there were philosophers. They were just pursuing science out of interest. And as time progressed, you see that in the 19th century, there was now an expansion of the field as more disciplines were being added on. Initially, it was mainly based on mathematics, but towards 19th century, we have introduction of chemistry. 20th century, there's a major advancement in science where there's a lot of breakthroughs in the area of physics. We have the likes of Albert Einstein coming on board as trying to prove and disprove theories that had been posed by scientists such as Isaac Newton earlier on. So what was happening is, as science was progressing, there was now, especially when you look at World War I, World War II, where science was very much involved in the solutions that they needed, there was formalization of science. And then there was now the emergence of formal structures. We have research universities coming up in America, in Europe, and now the journals that I think Prof was mentioning earlier on, that we're mainly publishing in journals, but that's how it started. And we also had science societies. And now we're talking of national young academies. I belong to the Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences, in short, ZIMYAS. We also have the Nigerian Young Academy of Sciences. So we're a group of young scientists who are seeking to foster research excellence. So we mentor other scientists. We also mentor aspiring scientists like high school students. We build capacity. We not only work with scientists who are in Zimbabwe, but we collaborate with Zimbabweans who are in the diaspora. So one of the areas that we work on is science policy. So we look at what is policy, how can scientists be involved, what is the policy making process. So I'll mainly be talking about that area, that working group of Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences. So when you look at the current state in Africa, I think this has been spelled out a lot so far, just remembering what Prof. Tomori was talking about yesterday and in the earlier discussions. So according to the AU Agenda 63, you see there's an emphasis on education, skills development, and science for us to have the actualization of that prosperous Africa. And yet we are faced with what is called the 1090 gap. meaning that 10% of the global health research that is being carried out only goes towards 90% of the disease burden. And of that 90%, most of those diseases are actually found in Africa. So we can see we are sort of at a disadvantage because Africa, even though we have an increasing number of researchers, scientists coming on board, we're still producing just 2% of research output. And according to the UNESCO Science Report from 2021, they say that 1% of global investment in research and development is spent in Africa. So this just highlights that the African himself or herself has to do something about this disparity that we are faced with, because look at the problems that we have. We cannot ignore them. Maybe the people in the room have access to better things, internet connectivity, a decent place to live, but we cannot ignore the poverty, the hunger, the pollution that we are faced with, and not to mention the disease burden. We have infectious diseases, and now we also have diseases of, like lifestyle diseases, such as the non-communicable diseases, cancers, or so many things that we are faced with. So I'm highlighting all these things because if we're saying that the researcher is doing research, most of it is being done in an academic situation, in an academic institution. But how do we move it from academia to industry? How do we move it to society? So what is going to facilitate that? Yes, we need funding and all that, but there's a lot of policy that is involved in it. Governmental policies, we need regulatory structures that are conducive for the researcher to be able to make a difference and to do something for society. So we have science, we have policy. Policy can also reap benefits from science because as science can inform the policy-making process. But these are highly dependent spheres, and yet it seems there's a chasm, there's a divide. We're not really on board together. We're not making decisions together. So how do we navigate between science and policy? Because if science is going to be a force of economic development, then the public and policymakers have to understand the process of science, and they have to be provided with usable information for them to make a difference in society. So as ZIMYAS, we've been thinking a lot about this and looking at what we are faced with. There's an issue of resources, but we decided not to be limited by resources, and we decided to do what we can with the little that we have. One of the initiators is fighting fake news. So this has been a problem in Africa and even beyond from pre-COVID-19, but it was magnified during the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a lot of misinformation. People wanted solutions. The pandemic was progressing faster than anyone else could manage, but people wanted to know what to do now, and they wanted the answers like yesterday, and yet they didn't know where to get the answers. There's a lot of misinformation. And when we looked at this, we realized, no, we have media practitioners, and these can actually be a powerful tool to combat science misinformation, because when they understand the scientific process, then they can help the public to question the information that they receive and to be able to navigate the uncertainty that we find in science. So after considering this led to the birth of the Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences Mass Media Fellowship. You can also check our website. This is a fellowship program. We are training undergraduate journalism students. So these are at a university in Zimbabwe. They're in their final year. And we have the first cohort right now with about 6 or 7 of them who are on board. So they're being trained by senior journalists. So we reached out to Zimbabweans in the diaspora, and through word of mouth, they managed to link us with other senior science journalists. We've come on board, they're training these students. And then the scientists who are part of the Zimbabwe Young Academy of Sciences also get to interact with these students and help them understand the scientific process. So it is really a two-way street where, as the scientists, we are learning how to communicate better, and the journalists, they're learning how to be better science journalists. So we have them on board since October 2021. So we have them for about a year. And this is really a hands-on fellowship where they get to write press releases, they get feedback, they get to improve on their writing, and they can also feature articles on scientists and the work that they are doing. And then another area that we're working on is helping scientists to engage with the policymaking process. There's a lot of talk about scientists engaging with the policymaker, which is maybe just mainly talking about the work that they're doing, but we are tiptoeing around policymaking. Some scientists feel maybe they might be politicizing their work if they get engaged with the policymaking process, but it's very important because it's one thing when the scientist is engaging with the policymaker with the science, but we have very few players in between. Those who are committed to help with navigating between the science and policy nexus. So to help with that, we have mainly been doing online events, where one of them was the Innovation Policy Forum. So with this forum, it's a multi-stakeholder platform where we invited industry players, government officials or policymakers, and also researchers in the same room. And basically, we just encouraged people to iron out issues, from all angles, so that we can get to know where the bottleneck is and what we can do about it. So in addition to that, we've had webinars where we invited policymakers to come and speak to scientists, help them understand how they can participate in policy making. We also write policy briefs on current hot topics. And all that, it has been a learning curve for us. We learn lessons, we adjust, and we plan ahead. And I'll just highlight three main things that we have learned in this process. The first one being that when you have a multi-stakeholder forum that is open for discussion, that actually helps to improve the public understanding of science, technology, and innovation in line with the AU Agenda 2063. And eventually you will have an informed citizen. And then the other lesson we learned is researchers are not always addressing current policy needs. So, as a researcher, when you've started and you're really in the thick of things, it's easy to get carried away. So you end up answering questions that no one is asking. And so that's one thing to be aware of. And then it is quite essential for when you're addressing policy issues, timing is key. Sometimes if you just miss the timing, then whatever you have to present really is not relevant, at least for that time. So it's important to know what the policymaker needs today, and then you can address that. And then lastly, the perfect time to start is now, and you start with what you have. If we had waited for resources, if we had waited for money or the perfect moment, we would have never started. I would not be here reporting on anything. So the best thing to do is do what you can with the very little that you have, and you'll be surprised what will unfold, because for some reason that attracts the attention of people, and then they'll think of partnering with you and helping you find resources. So going forward, we want to broaden our reach to African countries. Right now, with the mass media fellowship, we're just working with Zimbabwean students, but we really want to broaden our reach, collaborate with other national young academies, and get more people in Africa on board, because misinformation and fake news is a continental problem that we have to face right now. And then face-to-face interaction with policymakers. This is what COVID-19 had ripped us off, but we hope to engage with them at a face-to-face level. And I'm excited to say that very soon we'll be launching a magazine that will be centered on science policies. So this is open to industry players, academic researchers, and all the policymakers. And this is an open invite to everyone on this platform and beyond. Please spread the word. We are inviting you to partner with us. Come, let us write about these issues, and let us help each other navigate this space. And then in closing, I'd like to just say that African problems are best solved using African solutions are best solved using solutions that are designed by Africans. So we're the ones who are wearing these ill-fitting shoes, so we know exactly where the pain is. So who better to actually come up with the solutions than ourselves? And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Margaret. It's been wonderful hearing you talk about the wonderful things you guys are doing at ZIMYAS. So thank you for your presentation. It's been quite insightful and educative, how your team is balancing the science and the policy, as well as your role in information dissemination. So please, among the participants, do we have any questions? You can use the chat or you can raise your hands with the emoji. I actually have a question coming from my end. I would like to know, with the works your team is carrying out at ZIMYAS, what are the peculiar challenges that you're running into with the science policy, information dissemination? What are the major challenges that you've come across?
Okay, one of them is getting more people on board, because people really do not appreciate this kind of work. I think they would really rather discuss grant making process. How can we get money for more research? So and they'd rather, you'd find most scientists would rather just stay in their corner and do their work, rather than, you know, try to, like I was saying, they think you're trying to politicize their work. So I think getting buy-in from those who should be involved has been a major challenge, besides just the usual resources and just trying to coordinate everything at once. But the major challenge has been the buy-in from those who should be on board.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think that just coincides with what we heard from Prof. Asuzu. You can't just hold your hands and be sitting down there. So with the AU agenda coming up, we need each and every one of us to put our hands on deck and gain the African that we want. So please, any other questions? Okay, none for now. With that, we'll be moving on. So thank you so much, Dr. Margaret. We really appreciate you and that which you've shared with us.
Thank you.
So I'll be introducing